With the new Transport Minister now appointed, the wheels have now been set in motion to revitalise the transport sector, and key to this is infrastructure development. Infrastructure development is the catalyst needed to ignite lasting economic transformation, making our economy substantially stronger, more sustainable and more inclusive. And now to discuss this a bit more further, we are now joined by Chairman of the Southern African Transport Conference, Dr. Mathetha Mokonyama. And he joins us now via our video link. Dr. Mathetha, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, let's begin here. What would you say are the biggest challenges currently facing South Africa's transport infrastructure?
Good evening, ma'am. I suppose one way of looking at it is to review the manifestos of the political parties that contested the elections, especially the ones that are now in government. In fact, they all agree that the infrastructure has deteriorated to an extent that the infrastructure is an impediment to social, upward mobility of society, and also is an impediment to economic growth. So the state of the infrastructure is such that it's a bottleneck. But then also very important is the resources funding to maintain, but also funding to build new infrastructure. We have very limited, resources to do so. So we've got to be very innovative in how we put together resources to build new infrastructure. One of the interesting things that one of the parties in government of national unity, as we now call it, is that the road accident fund should be scrapped altogether, and the money used for that entity should be used for infrastructure development. The fuel levy should be reduced and used for funding dedicated to fund infrastructure. But of course, there are multiple views in these parties on how to address this challenge.
I mean, one thing that you immediately touched on is the economy and the state of the economy. And, one would ask, why is it so important to ensure that, there is some sort of sustainable infrastructure development to drive the economy? Because this will also essentially create, the much needed jobs we need in this country.
Yes. I mean, the work that is being presented at the Southern African Transport Conference for a number of years now shows that as society in South Africa, we are paying the equivalent as a backlog, 5% of GDP, more than we should on transport as society. So if we want to compete with comparable economies, we first need to reduce that backlog by an equivalent of 5% of GDP, so that our products that we sell, we export, are competitive. It also, things like labor costs are not necessarily affected by transport, the cost of transport. So. Transport carries almost the entire GDP of the country. So if we create efficiency in the transport network, we definitely will reap the benefits. And I suppose is one of the things that the new minister, will probably touch on as she opens the conference on Monday.
And when it comes to, with this new administration and the newly appointed Minister for Transport, what do you think needs to be prioritized by this department to ensure that, we can see these infrastructure projects take place?
The first thing is to make sure that the institutions that we have that are responsible for delivering are responsive. They've got the capacity to deliver, but also they are agile. And I think it's something that all these political parties, as you see them look at the manifestos, are saying. They're saying governance is something that is critical. We need to address it to make sure that the institutions do what they're supposed to be doing. But then something also very important is to look at our procurement, processes, how we procure, infrastructure, innovation, let me say. We, at the conference, present various technologies that are available to, for example, reduce the cost of maintaining, rolling out infrastructure. But when you go to municipalities, provinces, and you look at how they, bring innovation in their procurement system, it's lacking. So the procurement system finds it, I suppose, difficult to bring in innovation because a lot of these things are put out on tender, and how these tender systems are designed are such that they default to existing technology. So something to look at is how we ensure that how we procure, the procurement systems allow for innovation. But then lastly, something is to look at, partnering within government. Human settlements has got a budget to build new houses, but you want to build them, say, close to railway stations, so that the cost of transport to those settlements is reduced. So instead of human settlements locating the settlements in the peripheries of cities, for example, you want to bring them closer. Same thing with Home Affairs. The ID, smart ID card, can be used, instead of an additional driving, license. That ID card can store a whole lot of information. Why have, a driver's license, ID card, when you can combine them and digitize, the system for the benefit of reducing the cost of doing business.
All right, Dr. Mathetha, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. That's Dr. Mathetha Mokonyama. He is the chairman of the Southern African Transport Conference.